Welcome back to Market It with Atma, where we share the tips, tools, and strategies to help your business be successful. Today we have on the show a very special guest. She is the founder and psychotherapist of Core Counseling and Wellness, Dr. Galit Birk. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming today. So tell me again, what do you like to be called? How are you feeling right now?
I get called all of the above, from Dr. Birk to Dr. Galit to Gali to Dr. G and even G. So whatever works for you, I'll answer to all of the above.
I like Dr. G, to be honest.
Perfect.
It's great.
We'll go with that.
So what I want to ask first is kind of how long have you been doing this and what inspired you to start your own counseling and wellness center?
I've been at this for a long time. For me, where I am today is really closing a loop. I started a long time ago. I did my undergrad in psychology. At the time, my mother, who is currently a psychologist in Michigan, was going through school, and I watched her and decided to kind of follow in her footsteps. At some point, I dropped off and decided that isn't what I wanted to do. I pivoted, I went back and forth, and I got my PhD quite a while ago, and then life happened, and I went back to school and got another degree in counseling and eventually got licensed, and here I am.
It's amazing. We all go through that, right? The roller coaster of what do I want to do with my life? And then this isn't what I want to do. And then something else comes along. It's kind of, what do you call it, where the universe kind of aligns and you're like, ding.
Synergy.
Yes.
Maybe, right?
Perfect synergy. So tell me what type of counseling services you offer and what encouraged you specifically to focus on those?
Sure. So part of it I would say I found, and part of it found me. They always say when you're going through school that your specialty will find you. When I got started, I thought I wanted to work with women and trauma and eating disorders, and that is not at all what found me.
Really?
What found me was actually couples counseling and relationships, and it really surprised me, but I found that I loved it. And I would say that that's the major focus of my work today. I do a lot of couples work, individuals who are dealing with relationship issues. I also work with teenagers. I work with families.
Wow.
A little bit of everything, but mostly I would say relationship focused.
With that being said, what spoke to you about the couples counseling and what discouraged you from diving deeper into helping trauma victims and things like that?
That world and that work is really hard. I'll tell you, when I first got turned off from doing therapy back in my 20s, or even before, I thought that I wouldn't be able to separate kind of what my clients are going through and myself and my life. And I think that I have deep respect for those who work in that heavier trauma world, because you have to be really good about your own self-care and about boundaries, so you don't take that on and take that home. And I still do that, right? We think about our clients even outside of the office, so that's an important thing for all therapists.
I as a patient, I guess you would say.
Client.
Of course, yes, client. I've done plenty of therapy, and I strongly encourage it for anybody, just as to keep up with yourself, right?
Absolutely.
But I like that my therapist will text me just to see how I'm doing. I love that that personal relationship is there and she cares enough to message me. But how do you turn it off at the end of the day? I think any entrepreneur or business person out in corporate America has that issue. How do you turn it off?
I think it's so important, really, in most industries. And absolutely for mine, is that you have to figure out what your boundaries are, communicate them, and then the hardest part is honoring them yourself. right? So if you
Right.
say that I'm not available past, 8 p.m., let's say, unless it's an emergency, and then someone writes you or texts you or calls you after 8 p.m., you have to hold yourself, right, honest to your own boundaries and not respond, and remind yourself, you know what, I'll respond in the morning. Right? Unless it's an emergency, it's a whole different situation. But you just have to you have to put yourself first, right? Which is actually something I talk to my clients a lot about, is putting ourselves first.
And how do you define, I guess, I know, for instance, what you just said is a great point. But I had to learn the hard way, right? I didn't have somebody to help me through it. Is you can receive messages, you can receive emails after 5, but it's your choice as to whether or not you respond. So I always take a deep breath and I think, am I mentally able to answer this and still be present?
Yeah.
And most of the time I'm not.
Of course.
And you know what? It can always wait, but having to learn how to do that is so hard, especially when you're an empathetic person or you want to help everybody, right?
It's practice. We have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to be compassionate with ourselves, and we keep practicing. Just like anything else, when we fall, we get up again, we start again, right? Whether that's a business or a career choice that we've pivoted and come back to, or other boundaries or goals that we start and stop, and we can always start again. We always have that choice and that capacity as human beings to start again.
Yes, and what I just realized is you also coach.
I do. Yeah, I am a women's empowerment coach as well.
What does that entail?
Essentially, it is giving women the space and the time, right, to carve out the time for themselves to dare to imagine the life of their dreams, and then to begin to create and design what that looks like, and then step into it together in a safe space. And I do it both one-on-one with women as well as in groups.
Really? Do women, do you see a lot of response when they're in a group with other women that are trying to empower themselves?
The group is really powerful,
Wow.
right? It's about connection, it's communication, it's support, it's there's just something really powerful about the togetherness.
Wow. And so it's a coaching program. So how long does it last for?
I have various ways to work with me in coaching. I do. I don't so much like the one-off. I think, to be honest with you, both with coaching and with counseling, that there's a thing about the commitment. Right? If we come once or once a month or once in a while, it doesn't work.
I agree.
Right? We need to be like anything else that is important to us and that we want to work on. We have to be consistent in order to see results, in order to really make change, right? And transformation. And so while I do offer one-on-one a la carte, if you will. I prefer programs. So I have a 6-session, a 12-session, and an 18-session one-on-one program. And then I have a group, a 90-day coaching group. I also have a support/empowerment group coming up for counseling clients in Texas. So that's also based on divorce. It's for single moms. And again, I shy away from the traditional support groups because they often turn into opportunities to sit together and talk about all the negative things that are happening, and that is not what I'm about.
So you have a different focus.
I have a different focus,
With all the different varieties of counseling you offer, how do you tailor your approach to each demographic? You have teens, you have women, you have couples. How do you approach and advertise that who you are and how you're different?
Yeah, so it's a really great question. I consider myself eclectic and integrative in my approach. So I don't do a cookie cutter,
which I love.
approach.
Absolutely.
I meet you where you are, depending on who you are, right? And depending on what your needs are. And then I tailor my approach to you.
Wow. See, and that's a lot of the way we do it. So Advent Trinity Marketing Agency, we work off of a build, launch, grow, scale methodology. And we absolutely, especially in what you do, especially in marketing, if I can't understand you, then we aren't going to go anywhere.
Sure.
Marketing has to be customized and in any industry, right?
Of course.
So I saw your website and I saw that you have some social media. Great, by the way. How do you leverage social media to connect with your audience? Are you reaching out daily? Are you updating them on your day-to-day life? How does that work for you?
I wish I had a streamlined approach or process. It's actually I try to stay away from the word should. Like I should do that, and all my clients know that. I prefer that's something I am committed to, something I'd like to work on, my growth opportunity, if you will. I do post a lot on social media, mostly on my professional page on Instagram at Dr. Galit Birk, as well as I just recently started doing it on LinkedIn. Ooh. And I do probably a good mix of written content and videos. I think that there's something about seeing your face, seeing your voice. Sometimes this morning I did it, with my bed head, straight out of bed.
Because you're real, right? You're a real person just like everyone else.
And you bring up such a good point. That's something that I think differentiates me is that I like to show up real. I like to show up authentic, raw, as I am, transparent, all those things. I always tell my clients that I am perfectly imperfect just like they are. I'm human. I'm not always going to get it right. I don't always get it right.
Right.
And I like to, it's kind of part of my process of normalizing for my clients where they are in sharing where I am, right? In a
yes.
appropriate manner. Of course, therapists have to be careful with how much they share, but
they have to feel like you understand. And how can you understand if you haven't experienced a portion of your experience, right? I mean, I know that when I saw your energy is amazing, but you could tell you're authentic.
Thank
you. In everything you do, I think in any industry, if you're not authentic, people can feel it.
Yeah.
It's out there, guys.
Yeah.
So just be yourself.
Exactly.
Good, bad, and ugly. Just be yourself.
Exactly.
So I also see here that you've started writing a book as well.
Yeah, so this has been a long time dream of mine. And what separates our dreams from staying dreams and becoming reality is action.
Yeah.
And not just action, but back to that word I think I used earlier is consistency.
Absolutely.
Right? So we have to show up consistently in order to get the results that we want and to turn our dreams into reality. And so I turned 50 a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I decided, you know what, the time is now. Like all these things I cast off into someday I'm going to write a book. Someday I'm going to start a business. Someday I'm going to start get a tattoo, which, by the way, I got a tattoo.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I love it. It's very pretty, too.
Thank you. 4 days before my birthday, I got a tattoo. It says, "So she did," which for me is a very meaningful, empowering a statement. It's like a part of a quote that I live by. And so, with the time being now and this fire that kind of got lit under me with turning 50, I decided that this is the year. This is the year I'm going to write a book. This is the year I'm starting a business, all the things. So
that's amazing.
I started basically getting up a little bit earlier every morning to have time to write. And back to that perfectly imperfect thing, my goal is to do it every day. Do I do it every day? No. Mm-hmm. And when I don't, it's okay. I do beat myself up about it a little bit because I'm human. And then I remind myself to meet myself with compassion and to get up and start again.
That's amazing. So is there one thing that you look back on in your journey into this industry or even in life that you wish, dang, I wish I would have someone would have told my younger self this, or I wish I knew?
Probably so many things. Like,
we all have so many.
I would say probably the number one thing, and I've had this lesson over and over and over again at different points in my life, is that even when you don't have all the answers, or you don't know how it's going to turn out, or you feel like you don't know what you're doing, do it anyway. Right? For a long time, I said I had no business running a business, because I really did. For years, I said this because I felt like I didn't know what to do or how to do it. And I don't have a business background, don't have a marketing background, don't have an accounting background. Like, I don't know how to do any of these things. And what I really needed to do was to change the narrative and change the conversation. And I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm running a business.
Do you have mentors or, people you look up to that kind of help you guide? Would you say that that's a key influence that you need to have as a business owner?
Absolutely. I have my own therapist. I have my own coach. I have, other people in the industry that I regularly meet with that I look up to, right? Like people who run group practices, who have their own business, who have been doing it longer than me. And I meet them for coffee and I say, okay, what can you teach me?
Right. And maybe you teach them something in the process as well, right?
Yeah.
That mutually beneficial.
Exactly.
Those are awesome relationships to have. I love that. So you still see your therapist and you still have those mentors, because you're always growing, right? We never stop.
Of course. We're always on an ongoing journey of becoming. That's what I like to say.
Absolutely. And to touch on that, to never stop, even if it's one step at a time. I know I had a problem with that. It's like, I want to do everything in a hurry, but then life kind of sits you down. So even if you're move forward, right?
Yes, the baby steps get us there too. They add up.
They really do. And it's hard to kind of slow down and focus on those. So I'm glad that you encourage people to do that. So can you tell me, maybe we've talked kind of about what's one thing you wish you would have learned, an experience with a client that really changed your way of thinking or really touched you that you can share with us?
God, there's so many. This is going to sound funny, but I tell my clients always that I'm direct in my approach, that we all have people in our life who tell us what we want to hear, and if we're lucky enough, we have people in our life who tell us what we don't want to hear but need to, and I put myself in that category. And as such, I tell my clients that, push back. If I say something in therapy that doesn't fit for you, if I say, oh, I'm noticing X, or I feel as if you're anxious today, or whatever it is, and I get it wrong, and I will, because I'm human. Push back. And so I often have clients pushing back, and I have this one client in mind who it's part of a couple that I see, and for some reason I seem to push his buttons, and he often gets mad at me, and I can tell, and he either shuts down or he says something, and I'll say, what's going on for you?
Right.
Are you upset? Are you angry?
Mm-hmm.
And he will often tell me that he is really angry at me right now, right?
Yeah.
And I actually love that, because that's a place from which we can explore, and we can explore what's going on for him. But I also get to check in with myself and say, okay, where did I go wrong? Where was I misunderstood? I get to own up and clean up and repair with the client, right? And say, okay, what about what I said upset you? And take responsibility.
That's
right?
hard.
It is. But I find that it's so powerful, and it helps me be a better therapist.
Wow, that's amazing. I think a lot of people can say, oh, yeah, I want that feedback, that honest feedback. But a lot of people don't. Yes. Deep down, if it's not going to change. This team that we work with up here, that's one thing that I emphasize to everybody I talk to is, no matter what, I'm going to know what kind of mood I'm in, because they're going to tell me, and they're going to love me right through it. And that's okay. And I hope everyone out there has that in their life in some way, shape, or form. Do you think that's necessary to have a positive life or mindset?
Absolutely. I mean, we can't be positive all the time, right?
No, absolutely.
But we do always have, again, the capacity and the choice and the ability to redirect our thoughts, to change our thoughts, to choose what to focus on, right? To focus on the positive, because what you focus on grows. And to shift, when we do that, we shift our mindset, yes, but also our experience in the present.
Be a better person. It turns you into a better person at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So how would you gauge or consider success in your business? What is success to you? It seems like you're ever growing and changing. When is it successful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, there's two pieces to this. One is success in terms of being a business owner, right? And I think for me, that is, again, consistency. I feel like I say that word a lot, but I guess we could call it scalability, right? In a business
consistency
sense.
turns to habits, and habit becomes routine, right?
Yes.
So it all flows.
And then from a clinical standpoint, it's the wins. It's the client wins.
As long as you're still seeing those wins.
Yes. Well, and when they share them with me, right, that's huge for me. When they tell me, oh, I hear you in my voice, in my head. Like I hear, oh, what would Dr. Birk say? Oh, Dr. Birk would say this.
That is wonderful.
Right. So for me, that's a win.
So you've already succeeded in your life goal, and you're just making the best of it now, it seems like.
Yes.
Well, you definitely have a client in me, for sure. So is there anything, as we kind of wrap up this little session that I've absolutely adored, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience, particularly those looking to live life, love?
Yeah. I would say go for it. Be you. Do you. I know it's hard sometimes to quiet the noise, whether it's your own inner noise, like the negative self-talk, the self-limiting beliefs, all that, I can't, or the outside noise, right? People have a lot to say about a lot of things, right? But remember that we can have the lives that we imagine. We can have our dream lives. We can have our preferred futures. We just have to believe that we can. We have to be willing to dream it up, and then to little by little begin to step into it, to be your future self now.
I love that. It's kind of scary to take that first step.
Absolutely.
But
it
man,
is.
It's worth it, though.
It is, right? We need to be willing to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And if anyone wants to reach out to you to learn more about your program or one-on-one counseling, how can they reach you?
They can reach me at Dr. Birk Psychotherapy at gmail.com.
Awesome.
And I would be happy to talk with anyone. I do a 20-minute free phone consult, both for coaching and counseling, and I'd be honored.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Birk.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to all of our listeners out there, we'll see you next time on Market It with Atma.